Elation and jubilation, gamers from all around the world. I am Lucian, the World Gamer. Welcome to a show where we talk about everything gaming. And today I have a very special guest here with me, Jeremy Blaustein, legendary translator, voice director, and absolute authority in video games localization. Welcome, Jeremy, and thank you so much for being here with us today.
Hi, Lucian. It's great to be here. Thanks.
Thank you. So, guys, he's worked on some of the best and most classic video games ever. If you love games from the 90s and the 2000s, you probably experienced his work. His curriculum is super stellar, with games ranging from Metal Gear Solid to the Silent Hill series, but also Shenmue and classic RPGs like Suikoden 2, Valkyrie Profile, Vandal Hearts, Shadow Hearts. So I mean, guys, he's the one who came up with the name codec for Metal Gear Solid 1 and the now iconic phrase, "What is a man?" from Castlevania Symphony of the Night. So just wow. I mean, the more I think about it, the more it just blows my mind. And that's not even mentioning your role as a voice director and your work on localizing and translating the anime adaptation of a little series you guys might have heard of called Pokemon. So Jeremy, you had a hand in everything I love. You made my childhood, and I'm sure of our viewers today in some shape or form. So it's an honor to have you here, Jeremy. Thanks again.
Thank you. I think that's a great introduction. Thank you. I feel on top of the world after that introduction.
Great. So, I gathered some notes to help me because we have a lot to talk about.
I'll take it.
Hey, how you doing?
I would like to talk about Snatcher because that's one of my, all-time favorite titles. And you didn't simply take care of the translation and localization, but you were also further than that, and you took care of establishing which actor would take which role, and also the tone, I believe. So
I was working at Konami at the time, International Business Department. So I was doing things like shipping and stuff like that, but I was the only foreigner in the whole company, and so R&D began to ask me more and more and more to do little things. At the time, these were 16-bit games, so I was translating things like Animaniacs and Tiny Toons and Biker Mice from Mars, and writing the scripts for them too. So before I was translating, I was doing things like that. When Snatcher came around, this was the first game that they were going to put on a CD. So all of a sudden, all this voice, all this text. Obviously, I wasn't going to translate it. I was working 10 hours a day at Konami in the business department. So we found a translator who did an unbelievable job. And I sort of oversaw it, but there really wasn't much to change. The only thing I did in the text was there was a lot of there were some additional things they put in. So I did that. Played with the translation a little bit, just a bit. And then when it came time for the voice recording, we went to Chicago and I directed it there in Chicago. So I would say I was a localization director and the voice director. As far as finding the actors, I didn't find the actors. Interestingly, my twin brother, Michael, was working at Konami in Chicago while I was working at Konami in Tokyo.
What were the chances?
They found the studio, the Chicago, Konami US found the studio, and the studio had actors that they worked with, and they picked a bunch of them. And I think the studio director basically decided who was going to do what voice. But just like Metal Gear Solid, you're only deciding who's going to do what, but you haven't decided the voices yet. So I got in there. All right, how are you going to do Metal Gear, for example? I said to the voice actress, and she did a little robot voice. Oh, that's good. All right, how are you going to do Gilead Seed? Okay, and again, lucky accidents. We got to Chicago, and it was a very unique setup. This guy had a big studio, and unlike most games where you have a recording booth, which one guy goes into at a time. We had like 4 or 5 actors standing, mic'd up in the same stage.
Again, that's the best way.
I think it was their first video game, and these were people that were used to doing, rather limited things, not acting, but,
Nice. I love the job you did in there. Their job, the actors' performances. It's such a high quality, especially for the time, because this is we're talking about 1993, like 94 maybe. And I was wondering, I've always wondered, with such a huge work in the localization voice recording in English for once, with the work already done, why was this never brought over to the much wider player base of the PlayStation? I mean, there was a port, but it was only released in Japan. Do you have an idea why? Because I know the Sega CD selling numbers were abysmal, but the PS1 was the dominating console in the second half of the 90s. So one would think it would have been a safe bet for Konami.
I would have to speculate. It's either the fact that it didn't sell, and if I was speculating, I might say that it may be a little bit embarrassing for Mr. Kojima because, it was a really early work, and it was basically he took Terminator and
Blade Runner
and mashed them up.
And that's what he did as well with Policenauts.
I don't know. Maybe there's copyright issues that would be a concern. Maybe.
That makes sense. I didn't think about it.
Yeah.
Right. And speaking of Policenauts, honestly, I would have loved the localization done by you. We still got the excellent fan translation by the awesome people at Junker HQ, but I was wondering, were you ever considered for this project by Konami, and would you ever have accepted if they offered you to localize this game?
The conversation about whether or not to localize it, I remember happening while I was at Konami. And I specifically remember my Bucho, my boss in the department, they came to the decision not to do it, and I think at that time it was a financial decision.
They won't take the risk.
Yeah, plus it's incredibly expensive.
Yes.
You have to understand, recording that amount of dialogue is really expensive and a lot of work.
Yeah, but at the same time, they did all the work for the small Sega CD version, which is for an add-on, not just a console, a whole console. You needed to buy an add-on and have the base console, but not do that for the PS1, which was a standalone product.
Yeah, but Policenauts is a little bit more risque. Usually.
Yeah, but it was very similar in a way from the gameplay, the little gameplay that there is to Snatcher. In a way, they are kind of. I always see them as twins or relative projects. And how would you feel if Konami released the English version of Snatcher today, or maybe even finally released Policenauts to the world with the localization done by you? Would you be okay with it? Would you accept today if Konami?
Yeah, I would say take my money.
Because as well, you do the localization for Policenauts. Would you accept it if it was today?
Oh yeah.
If somebody from Konami is looking at this video, please. Especially, it's not that far-fetched, or rather, maybe, but because Konami recently has been looking at their back catalog, so who knows? They're still releasing Kojima games even after his departure, so who knows?
I mean, listen, I think they should release Snatcher immediately. Just put it up on the PlayStation Store.
It's money on the table.
For that matter, I don't understand why any games aren't just released. I mean...
Right, I agree. So, if you think of the Kojima games, they are made, these games, by Japanese people, but clearly the settings are mostly American-driven. And you can see that this is how Japanese people see America.
Right.
Right?
Exactly.
Especially at the time. Japanese people didn't know English very well, but it's interesting how much they loved Hollywood movies so much that it influenced their games in such a big way. So you would think that with settings like this, those games were basically Western ready, but they were really not. Clearly they were not. And that's where But when you came into place in polishing everything for the Western audience, how did you deal with that? Did it make you laugh? Did you cringe?
Yeah, I did all of those things. I think it's a very interesting thing that you're bringing up, and it's a little bit hard to understand. Kojima is an enormous movie fan, and I can imagine him growing up watching these Western movies, these American movies, but he's watching them with the subtitles in Japanese. Now, if you read Japanese, if you speak Japanese, and you see the subtitles of the movies that you know, you'd be very, very surprised at the subtitles. For example, there's rules about how long the translation can be, because when you only have a second to read them, for example. So there's kind of tight rules about how much a person can take in 1 second. And particularly in the old days, this Toda Natsuko, who was the most famous movie translator, I always thought she was terrible, absolutely terrible, because she took liberties that, people complain about translators taking liberties. If you read the Japanese subtitles of movies, you wouldn't believe it. And so anyway, I'm imagining Kojima-san watching all these movies, growing up, same age as me around, but he's reading them in Japanese. And so he's absorbing both the visuals of the American movie, but he's not really getting the Americanness of it. He's getting the it's Japanese.
It's Japanified.
It's Japanified. And then, of course, when he tries to reproduce it, in a sense, making his own Western movie, which I think he was doing, I think that, he was, it was like a love letter. Maybe all of his games are a love letter to the films that he loved, or I mean, look at all of his games. But my point is that he was giving back to the world a Japanized version of what the West had given to him. So we've got this very odd situation where a genre that had been created in the West was absorbed by a Japanese person, a very creative person, spit back, but it's a bit twisted in this Japanese way. So then, as a translator, what is my job? Not only what is my job, so in other words, is my job to make it purely Western, removing the Japanese things? How do you even retain the Japanese things? So there's that fundamental question, right? How do you even keep it? You can't, basically. Yeah, a lot of interesting, sort of philosophical problems come up with that. Yeah,
and the translation is always out of loss. We try to lose as little as possible. That's I guess what we go for.
Yeah.
At the end of the day.
Yeah.
Look, thank you so much. I think it's time to wrap it up. But before we do, one last question. It's not really a question, more of a space for you to say anything you wish to our viewers, your fans who followed your work over the years. So, what would you say?
Wow. First of all, I'd say thank you. I can't believe I have fans. I would say that I really loved, translating all these games, and nothing makes me happier than the thought that I inspired people, or I made their days a little bit better. It's awesome. It's absolutely awesome, and I feel really privileged to have had this career and this opportunity. And that's about it. Thank you, everybody, for all your support. And that's about it.
Awesome. Well, guys, I'd say we can now let Jeremy go. We've kept him here for long enough. And you've been very patient. You've answered so many questions today, and I truly, truly appreciate your honesty about the topics we've been discussing. Thanks so much for your time. You really made my day, and I'm sure that of our viewers as well.
It was my pleasure as well.
And that really wraps it up. I hope you guys enjoyed this nice little talk with our special guest, Jeremy Blaustein. If you did, don't forget to like and subscribe so that I can bring you the best quality content. But really, at the end of the day, I just want to thank you so much for spending some of your precious time watching this video to the end. I will be seeing you in my next one, but until then, stay safe, play safe, world gamers.